I was sitting on my couch that Friday evening, the smell of garlic and tomatoes drifting from the kitchen where Natalie was cooking dinner. 2 years together. 2 years of building something I thought was real. Then my phone buzzed. A number I did not recognize. The message read, "She still loves me. Always has. You are just keeping my spot warm." I looked at Natalie humming softly by the stove, completely unaware that everything was about to change. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from tonight. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever trusted someone completely, only to have that trust shattered in one single moment. Now let me take you back to how Natalie and I first crossed paths. My name is Maximilian, but everyone calls me Max. I was 32 years old when this story took place, working as a software engineer at a tech company in Austin, Texas. I had always been the quiet type, the guy who preferred a small circle of genuine friends over a crowd of acquaintances. Growing up, I learned early that trust was something you earned, not something you gave away freely. My parents passed away when I was 19, and my Aunt Linda raised me through my college years. She taught me that a man's word meant everything, and that honesty was the foundation of any real relationship. Before Natalie, I had been through a couple of relationships that did not work out. Nothing dramatic, just two people realizing they wanted different things. By my early 30s, I had made peace with being alone until the right person came along. I was not desperate. I was patient. I had a decent apartment with 2 bedrooms, a stable job, and a life I was proud of. I was ready for something real, but I was not going to force it. Then came that Saturday morning at a small coffee shop near my office. I remember it clearly because it was the first weekend of October, and the weather had just started to cool down. I was sitting by the window reading a book about artificial intelligence, completely lost in my own world. That is when I heard a gasp and felt something warm splash across my hand. I looked up to see a woman with auburn hair and wide brown eyes, her face frozen in horror as she stared at the coffee now dripping off my table and onto my jeans. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," she said, grabbing napkins from the dispenser and frantically dabbing at the mess. I tripped over my own feet. "I cannot believe I just did that. Please let me buy you another coffee and pay for your dry cleaning and maybe your therapy after dealing with me." I could not help but laugh. There was something about the way she rambled, the genuine embarrassment mixed with self-deprecating humor, that immediately put me at ease. "It is fine, really," I said, helping her clean up. I needed an excuse to stop reading anyway. "What were you reading?" she asked, glancing at the book cover. "Just some nerdy tech stuff, nothing exciting." She smiled, and I noticed how it lit up her entire face. "I am Natalie, by the way, professional coffee spiller, amateur human being. Max. Professional victim of coffee attacks, apparently." She laughed, and that was it. We talked for 2 hours that morning. I learned she was 29. A third-grade teacher who had moved to Austin about 6 months earlier from California. Her parents had divorced when she was 12, and she had lived with her mother until she decided she needed a fresh start somewhere new. She loved kids, loved teaching, and had this warmth about her that made you feel like you had known her for years. We exchanged numbers before leaving, and I remember walking home feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Our first official date was the following Friday. We went to see some comedy movie that neither of us really paid attention to because we kept whispering jokes to each other. Afterward, we found a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. We talked about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. She told me she wanted to eventually open her own learning center for kids with learning disabilities. I told her about my goal of starting my own tech consulting firm someday. At some point during that dinner, she mentioned her past relationship. I was with someone for 3 years before she said, swirling her wine glass. His name was Derek. It ended badly, but I have moved on. I just wanted you to know that I am not carrying any baggage. I appreciated her honesty. I did not ask for details because I believed everyone deserved to leave their past in the past. What mattered was the present, and in that present she was sitting across from me with that beautiful smile. The months that followed were the happiest I had experienced in a long time. We fell into an easy rhythm. Weekend brunches at our favorite diner. Lazy Sunday afternoons cooking together in my kitchen. Nights spent on the couch watching old movies, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her. After 8 months of dating, Natalie moved into my apartment. It felt natural, like the logical next step for two people building a life together. I loved waking up next to her, Loved coming home to find her grading papers at the kitchen table. Loved the way she would leave little notes in my lunch bag saying things like, "Have a great day," with a small heart drawn at the bottom. I introduced her to my best friend Travis, who had been my roommate in college and was basically a brother to me. After meeting Natalie, he pulled me aside and said, "She seems like a keeper, man. Do not mess this up." I had no intention of messing it up. Around our 1-year anniversary, I started secretly looking at engagement rings online. I imagined proposing to her at that same coffee shop where we met, maybe even at the same table. I pictured the surprise on her face, the tears of joy, the yes that would start our forever. For our anniversary, I cooked her favorite meal, chicken parmesan with homemade pasta. I set up candles all around the apartment, bought fresh flowers, and even attempted to make tiramisu for dessert. When she came home from work that evening, she stopped at the doorway, her hand covering her mouth. "Max," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I have never felt this safe with anyone." I held her close and believed every word she said. The first sign came about 15 months into our relationship. I woke up around 2 in the morning to use the bathroom and noticed Natalie was not in bed. I found her in the living room, the glow of her phone illuminating her face in the darkness. When she heard me coming, she quickly turned off the screen and looked up with what I can only describe as a flash of panic. "Could not sleep?" I asked, still groggy. "Just a friend from work having some problems," she said, her voice a little too quick. "You know how it is. Drama with one of the other teachers." I nodded and went back to bed. She joined me a few minutes later and I fell asleep without thinking much of it. But looking back, that was the moment I should have paid closer attention. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing small changes. Natalie began placing her phone face down whenever she was around me, something she had never done before. She would step outside to take certain calls, always with the same explanation. "School stuff, you know how administrators can be." There were evenings when she came home later than usual. "Parent-teacher conferences," she said. "Staff parties. Department meetings." I had no reason to doubt her. Teachers work hard and I knew her job was demanding. But there was a distance growing between us that I could not quite name. She seemed distracted sometimes, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. I told myself I was being paranoid. I reminded myself that trust was the foundation of our relationship and that I would not become one of those jealous boyfriends who questioned everything. So I pushed down my concerns and focused on being supportive. Then came the dinner with her friends. It was a casual gathering at a restaurant downtown, about 6 of her teacher colleagues and me. The conversation flowed easily until one of her friends, a woman named Jessica, casually asked, "Have you heard from Derek lately? He posted something about Austin on his Instagram. I think he might have moved back." The table went quiet for a split second. Natalie's face flushed red, and she quickly changed the subject to something about the school's upcoming fundraiser. On the drive home, I could not stop myself from asking, "Derek is in Austin?" Natalie kept her eyes on the road. "I guess so. I do not really keep track of him. You seemed surprised when Jessica mentioned him. I was not expecting to hear his name, that is all. It caught me off guard." Her voice had a slight tremor to it, and she did not look at me once during that entire conversation. I wanted to believe her. I desperately wanted to believe her. So I let it go. 1 month later, my laptop crashed in the middle of an important project. Natalie offered to let me use hers to check my work email while I waited for IT to fix mine. I was scrolling through messages when a Facebook notification popped up in the corner of the screen. Message from Derek Williams. The preview showed just enough I miss what we had. "Can we talk?" My stomach dropped. I closed the laptop and sat there for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only a few minutes. When Natalie came home, I tried to keep my voice calm. "Are you still in contact with Derek?" She froze in the doorway, her keys still in her hand. "What, Derek? Are you still talking to him?" "He messaged me once or twice," she said slowly. "It means nothing, Max. He said he misses what you two had." Her expression shifted from confusion to defensive anger. "You read my messages. It popped up on your screen. I was not snooping." What followed was our first real argument. She accused me of not trusting her. I told her that trust required honesty, and she had not been honest about being in contact with her ex. She cried. She apologized. She promised to block Derek and swore that nothing had happened between them. I forgave her because I loved her. I wanted to believe that people made mistakes, and that our relationship was strong enough to survive one.